What's up, everybody? Another kind of cool car. I got a 2020 Scatpack in here. I think it's probably only got 5,000 miles on it. And we're doing a cam install. So went with Modern Muscle Extreme. They've got their max effort cam. He's getting new injectors, some marker lights, the whole 9 yards. MDS delete kit, oil catch can. There's a rear diffuser back there he's getting. Gonna drain the coolant out of it right now and get started on it. Here we go. So this is what it takes to change a cam out in a 392, so a 6.4 or a 5.7. You basically have to strip it all the way down to a short block. And I still have to take the old cam out. I've got to take the old lifters out and the old MDS, there's a plug kit for it. So we're plugging the MDS solenoids and removing MDS lifters and putting regular lifters in. But anybody that tells you they're going to do this for less than $1,000, I would really question them, because there's a lot of work. I'm at something like 6.5, 7 hours right now just to get to this point. Still got about another hour to get the old cam out and get the new cam in. And these are all of the parts. Timing cover, idler pulleys, valve covers, radiator fans, hoses, intake, front bumper, you know, different shrouds. I mean, it's a massive undertaking to do this kind of a job. It would be slightly less work if you did not have to do springs, but he's getting a spring kit because he's going with a fairly aggressive cam. So we're doing springs and lifters. The only way you can change the lifters is to take the heads off. So if you're doing a no spring cam, you have a little bit less work to do, but boy, there's still a lot of work down to get down to just this point in a car to change the cam out. Here's the difference between the MDS, or multiple displacement system lifter, and a normal one. You can see these holes right here, therefore allowing oil to fill those things up. And when there is no oil in them, those cylinders basically go dead. Those valves don't open for exhaust or intake. And this is a normal one. There's no hole in it anywhere. So just my luck, the top broke off of the factory solenoid, and that one was leaking anyway. There was a lot of buildup around it, even though it's a brand new car. So I imagine there was something wrong with it from the factory. So I'm going to try to get down in there and pop it out with a pick. But that's basically the difference between the two lifters. And if they already don't get lubricated very well from the factory, the way this design is set up. So not having oil in there is going to make that even worse. So it's just a good idea to get rid of this system. It was a stupid idea from the factory, but at least we're getting rid of it on this car. So of course, this one back here broke. Barely just wiggling it back and forth, trying to spin it, and it just snapped off. So I did find a little trick that seemed to work on the other one. Hopefully it's going to work on this one, but basically I just took it, a pair of needle nose pliers, and spun it around. Make sure it's good and free. Then get that little tab in a way that's facing me. And then just stick a screwdriver. Just try to wiggle it. Oh, please come out. Oh, I think I heard it. Yep, there we go. And there's dirt and crap down in there that I've already cleaned this out with a vacuum cleaner and everything, and so let's get as much of that crap out of there as I can. Wipe it out, and there's these little washers. Need to go in the trash, because I don't want anything falling down in there. Now it looks like I've got everything out, so hopefully just be able to grab it. Here we go. And then before I put the new one back in there, I'm getting some oil, lubricating all the seals. And really lubricating the plastic part of it too, so it just kind of slides down in there. And then to install them, rather than letting the bolt push it all the way down, taking an extension which fits right over the top of this and just barely tapping it until it bottoms out. And then putting the bolts in there so that the bolts are not what's pushing it down in, because that's not gonna, it's gonna kind of push down on one side. It's not gonna be an even thing there, and it's gonna get in there cockeyed. Now I just gotta torque those down and move on to the lifters. Potentially the most famous shot of all, the cam shot. Get this bad boy all lubed up. So this is what it takes to change the springs in these heads. This is a special snap-on tool specific for these heads. There's your part number for this tool. Goes in place of the hold down bolts for the rocker arms. Just snug these down. Now compress the spring. And these guys are being kind of a pain. The valve is kind of in a bind, so I've got to tap on it to get the keepers out of there. So pull up on the valve. Oh, come on. There's the keepers. Spin this guy out of the way. Pull out your old spring, and there's a shim underneath these. Kind of like a seat or a shim. So there's a shim, a spring, and then a holder or whatever that thing is called. Those are going out. The new ones from Modern Muscle Extreme have a little thing that says there's shims that you have to use. There's a specific shim for the intake, a specific shim for the exhaust. I'm on the intake side right now, so it's the thicker of the two shims. Then there's the spring centerer, or whatever they call it. I can't remember what they called it. Then the new spring. And then the new spring holder. Spin that guy around. Stick the keepers in here. And these keepers are actually, they're slanted. They're kind of cone shaped. And the cone goes toward the bottom. And they always have some little bit of a magnetic attraction, so they'll kind of hold themselves in place. There we go, just changed the valve spring. Now I've got 16 total that have to be done. Takes around an hour and a half just to change the valve springs. About 45 minutes per cylinder head. Cam is all in. Everything's tightened down, Loctited, torqued, all that good stuff. Got the brand new lifters in here, brand new head gasket. Something interesting to note is there's actually, I don't know if you can see that, there's an L. And it looks like the only difference between the two head gaskets is this hole right here. There's nothing under there on this side. But on the back side, if you were to try to flip it, there's a oil drain back hole right there. So there's rights and lefts to these head gaskets. And these are Mopar head gaskets. Or should I say Fiat, Alfa Romeo, Lancia, Mopar. So I'm working on putting these marker lights into the bumper. And this is turning out to be a pretty big chore. For a couple of reasons. One, all of the wiring has to come through the bumper first and then go to the power supply and all that, because these snap in from the front. So if you ever need to take the bumper off, you can't, this has to be, the wiring for these modules has to be disconnectable from the bumper, just like the fog lights and all that kind of stuff. The other challenge to this whole situation is that the stuff it came with is really crap. I mean, it just came with this and these little terminals. It's I could do this quick, but it would be really sloppy. And this is a 2020 Scatpack, right? It has like 10,000 miles on it. So this thing, they're going to be visible and they need to work all the time, forever, for the life of this car. So I am actually going to use a WeatherPack Super Seal connector and pin all of the wires to that one connector, and then that connector is going to come up to right here so that you can actually get to it. And then the other half of the connector is going to get held right here. That way, whenever you need to take the bumper off, you can just reach your hand down in there, pop the connector off, and then the whole thing will just disconnect with the bumper, and then this will stay put. The other thing I'm doing is I tested the amount of current draw, and they're drawing 300 milliamps a piece with just the low setting. So they're drawing about a half an amp a piece, which together is going to be somewhere around 1 amp. So I'm actually going to run its own circuit, but I took the fuse box apart. And the reason I did that, all my testing here, let me get this out of the way. I took the fuse box apart, and the reason for that is there's all of these blank fuse locations and relay locations, so I'm actually going to put a new relay right here to power just those bumper lights. And I took the fuse box apart, and I'm actually going to pin new wires underneath here for the relay, and I'm going, because it draws 1 amp, I'm going to put a fuse in it, because during my testing, when you touch that wire, because I had to test these to figure out how they work, there were no instructions that says, hey, this wire does this wire does this. So whenever I took these little hooks and touched it to a battery source, they sparked, which means there's a high amount of immediate current draw. So I'm going to put a fuse in here as well. And I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to do it and how I'm going to do it, but I'm probably going to do it over here. I'm not 100% sure. I might just put a fusible link in it and stick it to the side of the fuse box. I'm not sure. I've got to do a little bit more figuring on that. But yeah, this is kind of turning out to be a chore. Definitely not quick. So the cam is actually back in there, and everything is all put back together. New injectors, oil catch can, all of that is in there. It's ready to go. But before I put the bumper back on, I've got to wire this stuff in and then give it a startup. So get this stuff finished. Okay, so I got the harness built and run through there. And it runs up here. It is zip tied to support it to keep it from chafing. Then I've got my connector on there, weather seal connector. Then if you come over here to the car, I've got my relay run. I decided just to do a fusible link and zip tie it right there. So if the fuse ever blows, it's still very accessible. Got my grounds tied in there. Tapped into the harness for the for the blinkers. Goes up through there. Comes around here, comes out here. It's fastened in place with a factory style connector. So now, whenever you put the bumper on there, you just make one connection and everything looks very stock. I've got the wire for the other blinker going over here, and it pops out over here. So, stick the bumper on here and test it out. So after all the fussing, this is what it looks like when everything is installed for these lights. The connector is right here so that you can actually get your hand in there. It's right there. And you can get your hand in there and disconnect it pretty easy. That disconnects everything. Now let's test them out so you can see what it looks like. Now I'm going to do some last minute checks, make sure everything is good, and start it for the cam install. Got to put the fender guards in there, put the wheels back on, and head to the dyno. So I got the whole car back together, got everything started, got the idle kind of tuned in really close to where it needs to be so I could get it from the other shop onto the dyno. Something that I did not take any video of and forgot to mention is degreeing the cam. Once I installed the new cam, I had to double check that the crankshaft and the camshaft are in sync with each other properly. And so I had to get my camshaft degreeing tools out, set all that stuff up, and that took, I don't know, an hour or so, and I didn't film any of that. I kind of forgot about it, actually, because I was more focused on making sure that I got everything degreed properly, and I didn't have any piston to valve wax, you know, because that'll bend a valve and toast a piston, and all the work I just did is not only wasted time, but a whole lot of money in that little oops moment. So So on the dyno right now, unfortunately this cam is too big for the artificial neural networks to be able to handle it. So I'm going to have to do a VE or a speed density tune on this guy to get it all squared away. But got it set up on the dyno and about to start digging in to get some tuning done. So I thought I'd show you guys a little bit of the step-by-step process in the improvements while tuning this Scatpack. So the blue line is his stock baseline. This is what a 2019 6.4 Scatpack makes just right off the showroom floor. This is a 5th gear pull all the way out to the red line, which I believe, yeah, it's set at 6,400, but the car starts shutting down at like 6,300. So this is after the cam, that red line, and you can see I'm just trying to kind of lightly roll into it, and I'm stopping right here at 4,900. And you'll see I kind of do a little bit better, a little bit better. There's another one where I got a little bit more confident, revved it out a little bit higher, and you can see it's not really doing that well because there's no timing in it. I'm just trying to get the fueling straight to make sure everything is not going to blow up. So then I had to shift gears. There was something weird going on, so I went into 4th gear because the pulls are a little bit faster in 4th gear. A little bit better in 4th gear. I think I'm starting to get into the power. Yeah, and I'm starting to get into the power. Okay, and then I start getting into, okay, here's a full pull. But I didn't make it all the way to the red line for one reason or another, and I had to back out of it. That's what all the craziness is. And then add a little bit of timing. Here's a 4th gear pull. Let's see. I think add a little bit more timing. Still in 4th gear. All right, and then here's a 5th gear pull where I've got everything done and had to back out of it. Still a little bit of funkiness going on down here. It's not doing exactly what I want. So then I think this one, no, that was the pull where I kind of panicked because my mouse slid off. Had to make a few more adjustments on the fueling. Another one that didn't go very well. And then I'm pretty sure this is after I got all the, yeah, this is the one where I got all the fueling settled in. Everything was worked out where it needed to be. And we'll compare that to, this was after a tune and some exhaust mods. And then this, where is it at? This is his baseline. So the green one is the baseline that it comes from the factory. The red one is after a tune and some exhaust work. And then the blue one is after a cam and tune and throttle body. So run 1 is the final run, so it kind of goes backwards. So you can see run 3 is stock, run 2 is after tune and exhaust modifications, run 1 here is after tune, cam, and everything. So that's a difference of a good 50 horsepower and a good 50 foot-pounds of torque. So that cam was definitely worth it.